Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Bells Must Ring podcast. I am your host, Andrew Rice. No Arnav Sarkar today, but picking up his rebound on this basketball-themed podcast is Gabe Pickup from the Voice of College Football Rutgers show. How you doing today, Gabe?
I'm doing good, hoping to bring a little bit of that Arnav pizzazz that we're missing out on, but I'm excited.
Yeah, and there's a lot to be excited about, especially in the world of college basketball. Rutgers kind of exceeded our expectations a little bit through the first two games. I mean, I don't know about you personally, but my expectations, even against weaker opponents, were very, very low. But they have had some moments where they have shined. The small backcourt has looked pretty good through the first few games. Against Ryder, Tariq Francis led the charge with 20 points, 4 rebounds. Dylan Grant, 17.7 rebounds. JaMychal Davis, 15.6 rebounds. They did have a little bit of a slow start there, but that smaller backcourt was really able to pick up the slack, something I was not expecting to see really at all this season.
Yeah, and as a Rider alum myself, there's been some unfortunate Rider news of late. I don't know if you heard about the what's it called? They're basically in an academic or financial hellhole right now, where like they may or may not be a university a year from now. But
okay. Well, I did not hear anything about that. No.
Yeah, they're in probation, I think was the word that came out the other day. But in terms of basketball, while they're still a university, yeah, Rutgers they did what they needed to do against Ryder. It wasn't really close after the first few minutes. Maine was a little more concerning. I want to say that second half was a little bit concerning because they still won by 12, but Maine's 0-3 to start the year. They've never really been a good basketball school, but Rutgers is offensively looking good. It's just defensively, I know 60 points doesn't sound like a lot, but for Maine, it feels like the defense could have been a little better against them. And specifically, the fact that they had 3 guys get double digits, it's stuff like that where moving forward against these teams, you want to put up a little bit more of a dominant showing just so that when you start facing the blue bloods of college basketball, you are a little more intimidating because basketball is very unpredictable on a game-to-game basis. And you want to give yourself a mental chance to be, intimidating to these teams moving forward.
Well, to be honest with you, I think that intimidation, even if they do beat these lower level teams, it's like, kind of like how they tell you how you're supposed to scare off like a black bear, like a human is supposed to like get large and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, he's no bear. It's just some guy.
I hear you.
I have a feeling trying to look intimidating to those other teams is probably not going to work out with the schedule. Like, oh, this team is 5-0, but you beat Central Connecticut State. So
Yeah.
I can't even tell you where Central Connecticut State is. It's somewhere in Central Connecticut.
I was gonna say, yeah. The first true test. Well, not even true test because they're ranked, but the first game up the alley of it's a legitimate scary opponent would be, I guess, Tennessee in 10 days from now, and I believe that's in Tennessee too.
No, that's actually out in Vegas for the Players Era tournament.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's going to be it's going to be, what I see, at least for the first 5 games, it's going to be easy sliding, and then you're going to be running into a wall, essentially.
Yeah, Tennessee, Notre Dame, and Purdue, who's ranked number 2. This is not college football. Michigan ranked number 6. Seton Hall, who's always been formidable. UPenn is probably the first game where you can sort of snap back to a little bit of a breathable game.
Well, I don't know if Seton Hall is going to exactly be I don't know if Seton Hall is going to exactly be like one of those daunting programs. That game's going to be a grudge match, as it always is. But with how Seton Hall like collapsed in on themselves last year, they shouldn't be a program that's completely out of reach for us to beat. But regardless, you did mention something in the main game that was very concerning, and that was the defense. I do have some of the numbers up here. From the floor, Maine shot 47.8% and 45% from three.
Yeah.
Needless to say, that cannot happen in Big Ten play, or we will be getting mauled every single game.
Yeah. I mean, Lehigh should be another win and American too, but you can't necessarily chalk up these games as wins if they play how they played against Maine. Because like I was saying with football, like, the how Rutgers played against Ohio or Miami of Ohio, if they play like that in the Big Ten, they're going to lose every game. And they started out losing almost every game. And it's sort of the same thing with basketball. Like, okay, how they played against Ryder, that was a great showing. Offensively, 81 points, defensively, only giving up 53. But how they played against Maine, it was a lot closer. And it's not a good trajectory either, is it? To go from winning by 28 to winning by 12. It's a little bit, I don't know if it's just regression towards the mean. Maybe Rutgers isn't the kind of team that's going to blow every team outside of the Big Ten out of, or outside of, I guess, the Power Four out of the ballpark. But it is a bit of a concerning trajectory, not just because of the score differential, but also just the fact that they scored less on offense, gave up a little bit more on defense. So hopefully that doesn't continue, against Lehigh later today.
Definitely. And, that game against Maine, I can kind of put it as a little bit of a, if it happens one time throughout
Yeah.
these like 5 non-conference games, then I could be a little bit like, all right, it was a one-time thing. They put it behind them. They tightened up on defense, whatever have you. But let's say Lehigh comes out and does the exact same thing. American comes out and does the exact same thing. Then it's like, oh, okay, what are we doing here? How are we going to find a way to compete in the Big Ten if we can't handle business against the 5 cupcakes that we scheduled deliberately to walk all over?
Well, Lehigh, okay, so they lost by 22 to West Virginia, dominated against Valley Forge. But what entertains me a little bit is Houston is ranked number 1 in the nation, and they only lost to them by 18. Now, 18 does still sound like a blowout, but 18 is within that realm that up until the last few minutes of the game, there's always room to come back on. You wouldn't expect Lehigh to come back against the number 1 team in the nation, but
No.
it's just interesting. They actually did win the second half. They were losing by 20 entering the second half, and then they won that second half. And even if that's Houston's bench for the most part, that's still it should be a sizable mismatch because of the recruiting that Houston does versus the recruiting that Lehigh did. So they play hard. They didn't necessarily have that same energy against West Virginia. West Virginia is unranked, but they are 3-0. So Lehigh plays. It seems like they play good teams. Well, they've really played every game well, at least besides West Virginia for some of the game, particularly the first half again, and then they tied in the second half. But yeah, I mean, that offense, 91 points against Valley Forge, that's a little concerning. The defense hasn't given up 70 all year. So the defense is what really, I guess, draws my attention. The offense is inconsistent, but can peak, but the defense has been consistent for them all year.
Yeah, the offense does seem to pose a little bit of a threat. I'm not reading so much into that Valley Forge game because I did a little bit of research on Valley Forge. They're a D3 school, so
Okay,
I'm not looking at that game and being like, oh man, this team can score, because when
that's fair.
when you're playing a pickup basketball game, which is essentially what D3 is, you should be able to blow them out like that. But to your point, the fact that they won the second half against Houston, even like you said, probably against their backups, you would have to think that with where Rutgers is right now, Houston's backups can probably beat our starters pretty handily.
Yeah, they can beat our starters. They can beat Lehigh's starters, you would assume. So
Yeah. So this is not a team this is a team that plays hard and plays to win. But if we are to return to Steve Peichel's original philosophy of the speed limit 55, um, I think that there's really, if to return to that means that it almost kind of nullifies for I'm trying to think of the proper way to say it. It's good to when we came into this year, we were expecting to win every game that we do win in an absolute rock fight.
yeah,
We weren't expecting to cruise over somebody. Since we cruised over, my
Ryder.
God, Ryder.
Yeah.
Sorry, since we cruised over Ryder, people kind of expected like, oh, okay, maybe we can cruise over some of these lighter teams. Maybe we are that team that can just bulldoze past these five opponents. And then Maine came around, and I think our original perception was brought back or readjusted
Yeah.
to, because again, we know that the games that we do win, we're going to have to do in an absolute rock fight. So I think our perception was skewed by the blowout win versus Ryder.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Ryder, I mean, having watched them for 4.5 years, they're inconsistent. They play some teams tough, but for the most part, they underperform against bad teams. Uh, I mean, I'm not saying Rutgers is a bad team. I mean, they're 2-1 to start the year, but they're middle of the
You
pack
know,
at best, at least based on trajectory. So for the rest of I'm really just interested, man. How okay, if we're gonna lose to Tennessee, how good of a loss is it? If we're gonna upset Tennessee, how good is Tennessee gonna play? Like, I'm curious. Like, how do we match up against Purdue, man? Like, these are the regular season games, like where I'm interested in because basketball is a long season. It's not like football where you lose a game, you're out of the playoffs. You need to, and there's 64 teams in the playoffs. Like, I'm not saying March Madness or bust here, but like because the tournament is so big, like it really is possible. Like you can have a Cinderella type of season. Hell, even just making the first four in, like or last four in, I guess.
yeah.
That would be that would be a very optimal goal in my opinion.
That would be to be honest, anything involving the NCAA tournament is going to be a massive success for this basketball team. Um, when considering what we thought to begin the season, I
Yeah.
mean, part of me had some like off-season thoughts where it's like, oh, all the expectations were placed on the team with the two NBA prospects, and now this team has no expectations.
Yep.
Wouldn't it be funny if the
Meanwhile,
way
this team is probably deeper than last year's.
I
Like
would say
last year, they like if you take off Harper and Ace Bailey, I think that they don't have it. It seems like a top heavy lineup last year, whereas this year it seems like the recruiting was done a little bit more of like gelling out the recruiting, spreading it out, making sure that it's no one man above all. Because Dylan and Ace put up their numbers last year, but it just seems like there wasn't really a system at play.
well, the offense was chaotic. This team at least seems like if they're gonna beat you, they're gonna beat you through a plan, solid defense,
Yeah.
uh, passing and screens and whatnot. Oh, did I lose connection?
I hear you. I don't see you moving, but I hear you.
Okay. Well, don't we just love StreamYard? The StreamYard gods have decided not to cooperate with us here today. But so when it comes to, I guess my best the best way I'm trying to explain it is that the offense the offense last year was chaotic, unplanned, and really seemed to like take shots from just anywhere on the
Yeah.
court. Dace Bailey's shot selection was
Mhm.
abhorrent. But this year, at least from what we've seen so far, we've seen the decently set up screens. We've seen a lot of passing. We've seen taking advantage of the open guy, something that we didn't see last year. So, point is, the last year's talent might get offset by this year's planning
Yeah.
and cohesion.
I 100% agree. And I'm also looking towards that Michigan game, getting some hopeful revenge, although I doubt it. From last year, my guy Damari Burnett had that buzzer beater against us. He's back there. So when it comes to Rutgers, you see the guy who got the buzzer beater on you, and a team that's now down Danny Wolf. It's still a learning progress for them. That's the thing about college basketball is a lot of freshmen leave after year one if they're a draft pick. And why wouldn't they? Because they work their whole lives towards a goal and they see the goal. It would be silly not to get it. So that's sort of my thinking is they're going to take some time to start getting used to each other again as a unit. And so maybe they're still sort of like working to gel together, find what works and what doesn't. And Rutgers could capitalize off of that. Although I would say Michigan could be as tough as Purdue, if not tougher of a team this year to face. So, especially because it's on the road too, it's going to be a challenge. But that Purdue and Michigan stretch, that's what I'm interested in because if we can keep those games close, then it's going to be a good year. If those games are blowouts, then we have a lot to work on.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of interesting that the way we're talking about this because if you look at preseason rankings, our first 5 games are followed up by our first our easiest 5 games, which are our first 5 games, is followed by our toughest 5 games. Like it's easiest, and then
Yeah,
it gets ramped up to 11 out of nowhere with Tennessee, Michigan, Purdue, and then you throw in Notre Dame and Seton Hall,
yeah,
and whoever they play in the next round of the Vegas tournament, depending on the seeding and whatnot. So either way, like I said, you easily go from the easiest part of the schedule to the hardest, where you're playing 3 ranked opponents in 5 games.
yeah. And outside of those 5 games, too, there's other games, following suit that aren't necessarily like even if they're unranked, and a few of them are ranked, it's still going to be challenging. You look at Oregon. I mean, we're facing number 14 Illinois, 24 Wisconsin. Indiana is still going to be a challenge. Michigan State 17, UCLA 15. Uh, you know, it's still going to be a challenge, even if they're ranked or unranked. But obviously, like Tennessee to me plays much better than the number 20 team historically, at least in recent history. And I imagine that they'll be a little bit higher than 20. When we face them in about a week or 10 days ish.
Yeah, I can't believe that tournament's already close. I will say though, I just like they did last year, I have a feeling that this team, if they get like a ranked opponent between like number 18 and number 25 at home, I feel like if they get one of those, they beat them because it seems like every year Rutgers wins a game against a ranked opponent that they had no business
Yeah.
winning. Illinois last year, um, they kept it close with Purdue the year before that. I know they beat a ranked team that year too. I can't remember which one it was off the top of my head, but it feels like every time that they get the opportunity to play like a lower ranked team at home, that team better be sweating because the rack is not very kind to ranked opponents.
Yeah, and it's just unfortunate too that like this time a year ago we were saying like Rutgers could be sort of a team a team to watch in the 2020s and 2030s, and now it's back to square one recruiting, square one coaching. So hopefully Kelly Zinn approves of this hire, and if not, then it's just like with Shiano, that wasn't her hire. Same follows for basketball. It's all sort of new now. Now I know she doesn't want to come in here and start a firing sale because that's sort of a power trip if it's for no reason. But we got to give these coaches time. It's just tough because it's like a whole new rebuild, not just with the athletic department, but with the basketball program too. Because you thought, I mean, a year ago, you thought that two prospects that were friends before coming to Rutgers would be able to sort of commence a program change that would accelerate this whole rebuild.
No, I agree with you there. But the one thing that, I kind of when you kind of dissect that basketball season a little bit, it's literally like there was like it's like a fancy mansion, right? But the second you open the door, all the structure falls apart. Because, back during that season, um, the surrounding players that they got did not live up to expectations.
No.
The NIL situation was abysmal. There was no permanent athletic director at the time, and everybody knew that the president was on his way out.
Yeah.
So no athletic director wanted to come and work for a university that was going to have a major change in leadership just 4 or 5 months from when they would get hired. Nobody wants to do that when they see a major shakeup on the horizon.
I went on a giant rant actually when Giovanni got named interim athletic director. It was our second interim, and I went on like a Stephen A. Smith when the Knicks signed Lamar Odom type of rant about that, because that was when we were at a year with no athletic director. I'm saying like how terrible of a look is that?
Oh, first of all, I mean, it was kind of a perfect storm at the end of the day, at least in my opinion, because don't get me wrong, I am glad that Hobbs is gone.
Yes.
And first of all, what he did was not right. Second of all, he was not a very good athletic director when it came to adjusting to the new world of college athletics, NIL, whatever have you.
Yep.
But the fact that it took so long, because nobody wants to come work for you if they don't know who their boss is going to be in 5 months, So that's like President Tate gets sworn in or gets accepted, or love what he's doing so far. Love the fact that he's pro athletics.
Super pro athletics, yeah.
Yeah.
I believe Ryan Clark did a piece with him about a week ago.
Yeah, but even still, like, super pro athletics, like, really can't ask for anything more on that front. And then he goes along with the whole search committee for a little bit, but then I believe when they had to elevate Giovanni, and no disrespect for him, he was elevated to a situation that I'm sure that he was not necessarily mentally prepped for,
And he is now deputy AD, I believe.
Yeah, he was he is the deputy AD. But then he kind of goes along with that search committee for a little bit, and then he says, "Okay, enough is enough. I'm bringing in my person," which it was a really bad look that they waited a year to get it, but in all honesty, they could have waited a year to get it and then hired an absolute quack.
Yep.
He at least seemed to knock this one out of the park.
100%. I love what Kelly's been doing, how active she is in the community. The fact that she's going to away Purdue games for football, whether that's to get a closer look during a storm of a season, or because she's just that much of a diehard fan. That's not my business. I'm just happy that she's in attendance for games like that. I mean, it seems like she's not just an athletic director, but a fan too. And I know she'll be attending a fair amount of basketball games too, because this is we've talked about it, but this is a program that you don't expect the world from them when it comes to their basketball team, but you also expect some upsets this year. Some games where you'll see on ESPN, Rutgers upsets, whatever, Tennessee, Illinois, Oregon, whatever it is. Yeah, Wisconsin. Yeah. So, and those are going to be the types of games that recruits are looking at too. And why are we upsetting these teams? And why aren't we upsetting these teams? It's because of the system that coach is putting in. So I'm still excited. I'm still optimistic. You have a lot of good things to take away from a 2-0 start to the year. You have some negatives, but it's not enough negatives to be any sort of pessimistic at this point of the year. It's stuff that we can adjust and stuff that I have faith that we will adjust.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, if the stuff against Maine continues, then it's a little bit of like, okay, what are we doing here? But as long as they can keep it to a one game, like, oh, just a minor blip on the 5-game radar, that makes a completely different story. I did like how you mentioned Zinn going all the way out to Purdue to watch that game in person. Funny enough, that's actually where I met her.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I have family out in Indiana. My mom's side of the family is huge Purdue fans. My dad's side, huge Rutgers fans.
Huh.
So it was kind of like we only played like 3 times in our history. We have to go
Yeah.
see it, right? And we got tickets in the Rutgers section, and she was just outside the tunnel talking to fans during halftime. So
Yeah.
that's really like incredible to see somebody
Was she
that.
wearing her scarlet red suit?
Yes, she was.
Iconic.
But it's really nice to see, especially from an athletic director, going from Hobbs, who was like so camera shy and not forward at all, to Zinn, who is not afraid to like go and speak to people in the parking lot, at the tailgates. It's really like a refreshing sight, because that's somebody, if you see them and you meet them and you shake hands with them, you can actually trust them. And given Rutgers' history with athletic directors like Julie Herman and Pat Hobbs,
Yeah.
that makes a world of difference.
Yeah, it does. And in terms of shaking hands and trusting them, you can say that with Zinn. You can say that with with Coach Shiano too, because Coach Shiano, he isn't. I mean, I've been critical of his game day coaching, but in terms of program building, he is one of the best program builders in the damn nation. If you look at where Rutgers was right before he signed on, and he is also very much involved in the community, attends a lot of events, speaks with the media very directly about how he feels, i.e., quote unquote, him being the only guy paying for the Rutgers football program. So I'm happy with that fact. Whether Shiano is here a year from now, 2 years from now, I'm not certain. Kelly's in, however long her reign is. I do trust both of them as people to be foretelling with how they feel, where the direction is at, and what their plans are.
Well, gonna dive a little bit into like elaborating into how long they might be here. You know, let's say basketball does not make the NCAA tournament this season, and football does not make a bowl game. How much like? How much does it affect if, let's say, football makes a bowl game and then basketball makes the NCAA tournament? Does that like extend timelines here? You would think.
Not for Zinn, because none of these hires are on her. Now she does. She did allegedly block Shiano from firing Rob Smith, but outside of that, there is nothing that she has done this year that would reflect negatively on her resume. But with Shiano, if they don't make a bowl game this year, and Kelly Zinn has gone on the record to say that she will be reflecting Shiano based on the wins and losses at the end of the day, then I think what should happen is there should be a precedent that says, Shiano, you got to win 8 games next year or you're done. But in the back of her head, it's 7 games, because that's you got to have a numerical goal for Shiano at this point, because we've been stagnant the last 3 years with some pretty good rosters. I actually said in my group chat with the Rutgers VOCFB co-hosts that you take this Rutgers offense and last year's Rutgers defense, and we could be a ranked team right now. And the fact that we had two solid sides of the football, particularly this offense this year, and we're stuck in a rut right now is frustrating. Now with basketball, I don't think that making the tournament has any effect on the coaching staff, honestly, this year, because it's year one. It's such a new program. We don't have the star names anymore. And, no matter how good the hard work beats talent philosophy is, it's tough when there is a talent discrepancy. So I think that all jobs are 100% safe except for Coach Shiano. And that is frustrating to say, because I do love Coach Shiano, particularly from his first stint, but also building us back up the second stint. But I mean, at some point we need to improve instead of flatline. And I'm not calling for his firing at all, but if the program does part ways with him, at this point, it's understandable.
Wow. Okay, that was not the take I was expecting. I'll be honest with you. I have a little bit of a different philosophy.
Mhm.
I think that if they make, I'm actually a little bit flipped. I think Peichel is going to be under a lot of more scrutiny because still at the end of the day, Peichel has kind of like gone up and dipped down,
Mhm.
but with football, it's flatlined.
Yeah.
So, how much if they continue to dip? What happens if they continue to slide downward? It's going to be very interesting to see with this new regime at the helm.
100%. And my co-host, he basically has like a this happened, therefore this happened philosophy with Zinn and Tate, where they were at LSU, therefore they won't accept losing. And I'm sort of at the philosophy that they were at a program that was dominant before them and will be dominant after them. And they didn't necessarily not contribute. They definitely did contribute. They were there for the Angel Reese LSU team. They were there for Paul Skeen's LSU team and
Yeah,
Dylan Cruz for the baseball team. But I also believe that they understand that Rutgers isn't LSU, and they understand it's going to take some time. So I don't think because they were at LSU, they're going to have the same approach. I think that they should have a patient approach, a cautiously patient approach. But with the football program, with Coach Shiano, like you said, it's flatlined, and with football, you can't flatline. You need to sort of keep building, or it's going to be your program at the bottom of the Big Ten again. And right now we're a bottom 5 team in the Big Ten. But like, what's stopping us from next year being bottom 3 if we lose 8th and we lose a lot of guys via NIL transfer portal on offense, God forbid, or Ian Strong to the draft, or Eric O'Neill, obviously. So what's stopping us from like our only hope right now is the fact that Shiano's a great recruiter. He's recruited 2 top 10 guys from Pennsylvania. He recruited a 4-star from Georgia who chose us over, I believe it was Georgia Tech, and Auburn. And there's the Penn State crisis where hopefully we can steal some guys out of that, steal one guy back, hopefully. So I think the recruiting, Shiano's a fantastic recruiter, and Kelly Zinn doesn't question that at all. What goes across her mind, like she's said in interviews, is the wins and losses. So that statement alone is the reason why I think that he might be on thin ice.
Well, I will say that I think that Shiano might have a very golden opportunity in the transfer portal this season because Penn State obviously fired James Franklin. I can't personally imagine that Mike Locksley is going to survive this season. So, and I also can't think that Bill O'Brien up in Boston College is going to survive this season.
Yeah.
So, you could be looking at the 3 other powers in the Northeast, or 3 of the 4 other powers in the Northeast, vacating their coaches, which,
Yeah.
maybe
And
these
also
kids don't want to go too far.
facts. And also, Because in Pennsylvania, at least where I'm at right now in the Philadelphia area, it's usually between Penn State and Rutgers if they stay up here. It's either that or they travel to an Ohio State and Alabama, whatever the case may be.
Right.
But that's what the case is locally. And you know, another school that we don't mention that already did fire their coach is LSU. I mean, there's going to be a lot of people that are seeing, maybe they won't come here for coaching because, Zinn and Tate aren't on the coaching staff, but maybe they're a fan of how they ran the university and they approve of Zinn's tenure in the athletic department. And, we're not getting Newsmeyer, obviously, but like, why not get maybe some defensive line help, some offensive line help? They've been a little disappointing this year, but LSU has some damn talent on that football team that would be an honor to see some of them come to Piscataway.
Yeah, well, I think that one might be a little bit of a reach, in my opinion, because, I don't. The only possible scenario that I can think where that might work is that certain players like how they handled their NIL situation or how they handled their NIL deals. So I could see that of like, oh, okay, I want to go to somebody that I can trust to help me get my money. That I could see. But other than that, I'm not 100% sure about that. But it also, it's going to be interesting to see overall, especially with football, because Shiano was doing so much extra work that did not involve like developing
Yes.
players. And I wonder what it's going to be like next season when he actually has a lot more time to sit down with each individual position group and have more time to develop each player instead of getting on a plane to go talk to a stockbroker in New York or whatever it was.
Yeah. So you're saying next season when and not if he does this for Rutgers?
What do you mean?
I mean, you're saying he's 100% back.
For next season?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's anybody who might not return for next season, I think it might be Peichel. But because again, if you're gonna fire one coach out of the two, right? Are you gonna fire the one that's on a downward trend, or are you firing the one that's going nowhere? That's kind of, or the one that's having,
yeah, I hear you,
reasonable success but not enough success.
I guess we'll have to see if the trend really is downward for basketball.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that depends on how this season goes.
Yeah,
but so we got a little bit off track there. I did have some other things I wanted to break down about basketball just to kind of like loop ourselves back into it. I guess my question is, how do you feel about this team as we slowly are approaching better competition?
Yeah, I'm happy with. I'm giving it a. You still have to give it like an A minus. I mean,
Yeah,
they did, like, we're saying that you looked bad against Maine, but you still beat them by 12. That's A minus esque. I mean, that's a winner's mentality. Is you nitpick what went wrong, even if it is a 12-point game. There's nothing really to take away from that Rider game because that was an A plus performance, and the
right.
main game you would say is like a B or a B minus. So I'm giving it an A minus grade so far, and against Lehigh and against American, I expect no different. Against Central Connecticut, I expect no different. So I think the trajectory I'm feeling pretty good about. As if you handle business against all of these teams like you should, and it's not a given, but you should handle business against all these teams, then why not be confident going up against the Tennessee and Notre Dame, having been playing the best possible basketball that we can play. So I'm feeling good.
Good to hear. Before we loop back into football, we're going to dive a little into some women's basketball talk. They just had a game yesterday against Rhode Island where, they were able to pull out a win against a decent Atlantic 10 team, 68-63. funny thing is that Rutgers actually never trailed in that game, despite it only being a 5-point game. Every single time that Rhode Island seemed to go on a run, Rutgers answered back, put some points on the board. But yeah, we do have a season leader in Nini Ninjaye, who broke her season point total, going up to 24 points in a single game. Broke her single game point record with 24 points against Rhode Island. With teams like Auburn coming up next week, and then more Big Ten play coming down the court a little bit. How do you feel about this women's team heading into Big Ten play?
Well, I thought that the game against Rhode Island was a good bounce back after losing by 17 to Stony Brook, who aren't necessarily top of the mountain for basketball play. But I thought it was a good bounce back, even if the game got close towards the end of it, and it was a little bit scary. It was still a solid all around performance. You mentioned Ndaye with her 24 points. Ivy 13, Perkins with Zakara Perkins with 12. The one thing is I would like to see this team pass the ball a little more. We only had 11 assists that game for 68 points. You would hope for somewhere from the 15 to 20 range. And so that sort of fluidity is something that I'm going to be looking at moving forward. Next game against FDU, which is Fairleigh Dickinson. That's sort of a game that I would also expect to win, although so far this year, we blow out Wagner, but then Quinnipiac has played a little bit closer than expected. Stony Brook is a very upsetting loss. To me, Rhode Island that's the first game where you have a formidable opponent and you play them well and you win the game well. I mean, you win it in a game that you don't dominate all 4 quarters, but you play handily in all 4 quarters. So if we can play the same way against FDU, I don't see why we can't necessarily make it a game against Auburn.
That makes sense. I will say that Quinnipiac is actually no pushover when it comes to the women's leagues. They're actually a pretty decent mid-major, which makes it all the more baffling that you go out and you beat a decent mid-major, nothing spectacular, and then you lose to Stony Brook, who, to my knowledge, is like, oh boy.
They're not great.
Not great, yeah. And then you come back and beat Rhode Island. It just makes you question, what happened here?
With Stony Brook, too, they had 2 20-point scorers, including Caitlin Frost's 21 and 10. And they out-rebounded us, too. Alana Sellers also had 8 rebounds. But, yeah, I'm going to be looking for how well we're moving the ball against FDU. If we're getting these buckets, can it be in a flow-like state? Because hero basketball isn't going to win us the games that we need to win to be taken seriously.
No, definitely not. And, as this team gets healthy, gets Faith Blackstone back, they're supposed to get forgive me. It's escaping my mind right now.
Not forgive you.
No. Well, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do.
As the liaison for women's basketball, I speak for all of us. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sorry. I think it's oh my god, my computer ain't working right now. I want to say
Gotcha.
I know it's Faith Blackstone. I do. Oh, I have the injury report on my phone. That would be smart to check, wouldn't it?
Antonio. Oh no, she already. Okay.
Faith Blackstone and Lauren Swan, who was the transfer that came over from Arizona. With them coming back, Swan was a starter. Blackstone saw decent minutes coming off the bench. This team should all around have better play, obviously when you get your starters back. So I don't want to say that Stony Brook game wasn't telling, because it absolutely was. You can't ignore a 18-point loss to a team like that. But there are some things, Ninjai has proven to be a somebody, because you go from averaging 4.4 points against at Boston College last year, and then you're the team's leading scorer this year. Maybe
Yeah,
we have a breakout scenario on our hands, and coupled with
see it.
some better talent around, you're all of a sudden you could truly take off or have a team that takes off. So it
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised to me if this team, when they got healthy, kind of just shot out of a cannon.
She definitely is. Njai is definitely going to have a great year this year in comparison to last year, where you mentioned she struggled a bit, didn't see as much action. This is going to be a good year for her, and it's one that she can build on as she, has bigger goals at play. Now, the problem with relying on injuries is that injuries are a carousel in basketball. You get some people back, you lose some girls, so it's tough. I mean, injuries are, aside from like maybe one or two instances every year, it's mostly luck when it comes to injuries. Now, there's always going to be players. You hope that Blackstone doesn't fall under this, that are just injury prone and you can't rely on them being healthy. But I don't think that's the case with Blackstone. And in college basketball in general, it's often a lot less of an instance where a player is just injury prone because they're younger and they have chances to heal quicker. Whereas with like the WNBA or the NBA, there's people that have too much wear and tear on their body to play, but you wouldn't expect that necessarily in college. It's just a case though that even with the fact that players are more durable in college, it's just a carousel. So you hope that's not the case, but you can't necessarily rely on health. You just have to have health be sort of a blessing rather than a given.
That is a good point. Um, there is, but there is one area where, and this is how we're looping back around. You ready for this?
I'm
Um,
waiting.
there is one area that is unique to football where a team gets an opportunity to get healthy, and that's called a bye week.
Bingo.
Um,
Nice. Good one.
Rutgers, what's up?
Good one. Good segue.
I know, right? Rutgers football is currently on a bye week. They are set to go out to Ohio State to play, out to Columbus to play Ohio State next week on the 22nd, I want to say. Yeah, 22nd. And then what could very well be a showdown with Penn State for all the marbles at the end of the season. Um, what do you want to see from this Rutgers team coming out of the bye week? Is there any like specific things in mind that you want to see from them with the last couple games of the season?
Yeah, if I'm gonna take the all hope is lost approach out of play here, and I'm gonna look at strategically what can we do to make it a close game, a good game, and in our heads we're trying to shock the world. So how do we live up to that expectation? The answer is offensively, we need to have plays where we wear and tear the defense out. We, instead of going for all the marbles like we were able to do against Purdue, failed to do completely against Illinois. And it looks like we sort of went the running approach against Maryland. And all of a sudden we had our most well-rounded game of the year. That's what I want to see. I want to see Antoine Raymond get a lot of plays. I want to see check down plays, bubble screens, get the tight ends involved, do things that we haven't done all year. Kenny Fletcher had a very clutch game where he had 2 catches against Maryland, but it was a game where he was questionable going into it, and one of them was for a 3rd and 8, and he jumped into the first down pylon. And Antoine Raymond, obviously 41 catches. Good Lord, that would be historic. 41 carries for 200 yards. And I want to see Ian Strong remain involved outside of being a red zone threat. I want to see DT Sheffield get 6 to 8 catches and be, if we're going to be doing check downs, it's going to be to DT a lot of the time. So I want to see offensively that we don't necessarily go for the game winner every damn drive like I unfortunately expect we might. I want to see check downs. I want to see smart plays. Athan has the most passing yards in the Big Ten. You're not going to get your season's average in passing yards by throwing the ball 30 yards downfield every play against Ohio State.
Oh, Lord, no.
On defense, what do you do against Julian Sayin? Well, this is one of the first instances where we're facing a non-mobile quarterback. And to me, it's a blessing because with Sayin, he is the guy who's going to be throwing the ball every play. At least this season, that's what he's been doing. So drop back 7 or 8 until he gives us a reason not to. And now, with that being said, I'm sure they're looking at us and saying, hey, they're prone to mobile quarterbacks. Let's actually try to incorporate the run game. So I expect them to run a lot more than they usually do. But to me, until they do, I mean, make sure that Jeremiah Smith isn't torching us. Make sure that their other weapons, because they have like 3 or 4 offensive receiving weapons that can make the pros one day. Make sure that he's not killing us with his arm, Julian saying. Try to get him to make mistakes because he's not very mistake prone, but that's because he is not necessarily going against a team that is dropping back 7 or 8. They're playing him tough, and how we play him tough is we try something different. That's the only way that Rutgers is going to be at play here, and try to avoid the Oregon game at all costs. Make sure that we don't have another showing like that, because if we do have a showing like that, and Penn State is the game that I assume it will be, which is the bowl game or bust game, it's going to make the season outlook a lot worse if we don't have a tough, gritty game against Ohio State.
Well, I will say that I still think that the Penn State game is going to be the bowl game or bust game.
Yeah.
But the encouraging news from at least from an Ohio State perspective is that when Ohio State plays a team like Rutgers, they don't seem to just completely roll over them. Like even Purdue lost 35-10, which is like, okay, if this was any other Ohio State team, this would have been 56-3.
Yeah,
but
it's just funny hearing 35-10 be disappointing.
Well, yeah, right. But if this was any other Ohio State team, this would be like 56-3. But this Ohio State team in particular is a slow moving, as something that I've done as an analogy all year. They're not a race car that's gonna blow right by you. They're rather like a. I blanked on the name of this too when I was making the analogy to Arnav, but it's the truck with like the rolling pin at the front.
Not the whatever the cargo equivalent is. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, kind of essentially like a steamroller. That's what.
Okay. I was gonna say an 18-wheeler.
No. So I go like. They're not a race car that's going to use their flash, glitz, and glam to blow right by you, but they're a steamroller, meaning that it might take them a while, but you're going to be flattened just the same.
Yeah. One game I did want to point out is the Ohio State-Ohio game. Now, the score is not indicative of how close that game was. It was 37-9 at the end of it, but there was a point in the third quarter where it was 13-9, and Ohio had the ball to take the lead. Now, if you can play a game like that, where it's the second half and we're still in this game, that's one that I'll be more than happy to have.
The problem is with that is that, you have to have the tools in place to slow Ohio State down. Do we have the defense that can do it? You talked about how, Julian Sayin isn't a particularly mobile quarterback. The problem is Malik Washington is not a mobile quarterback.
That's true. That's a good
he only had less than 100 yards rushing on the season before he faced Rutgers.
Well, I will say with Malik Washington, we had the same approach. We said, let's make him do something that he's not used to doing. And then once he started proving he can, then we adjusted. I expect the same game plan against Julian Sayin. I mean, I could be wrong because of how we performed against Malik Washington, but that's what I would hope for against Sayan.
The one thing that kind of I don't know, kind of put me a little bit crazy when it came to Washington and all the other quarterbacks that ran all over us. I never once saw a spy or anything like that to just keep a tab on the quarterback. I would like to see that. Maybe not every play, but like mix that in every once in a while, so we're not getting completely torched on all these quarterback design runs. But one thing that I am hopeful during the bye week is that this team has been plagued with obvious like miscues. That Illinois game where we had defenders running into each other, that Purdue game where there was a wide open pass in the end zone. That's just confusion of where to be and what to do, and that should be resolved by this point in the season. It hasn't, but it should be. This bye week provides an opportunity, like a last-ditch effort, to resolve issues like that. And if they are able to clean up most of them, this could be a completely different team because you don't need great defense. You don't even really need good defense. You just need competent defense for this offense.
Yeah, and the other path there is, and I'm glad you actually brought up the defense, is the best defense this game will be our offense. If we can score every drive, then the defense will feel better about trying some things, going for interceptions. I mean, that's our offense has been our defense all year. That's what's been keeping us afloat, is having 34 points against Ohio, is having 35 against Maryland. It's having 60 points against Norfolk State. The offense, even scoring 28 against Iowa, 28 against Minnesota. These are games where, we lost those games, but the offense has been what's kept us afloat. Now, against Ohio State, I hope for the same thing. I hope that our offense and our check down plays, setting up for open plays downfield to a Duffer Strong. I hope that's what keeps us afloat. And, Duff using his 6'6" frame, Strong using his 6'3" frame to sort of moss some of these backs. Because I tell you, against this Ohio State team, we're going to have to make some spectacular plays if we want to keep the game close or go for what we believe is implausible and Rutgers is going for, which is the win. That's what needs to be done. Thankfully, the run defense for running backs has been good all year. That's what's been our strongest point on defense, is sort of slowing down running backs rushing the ball. Outside of, I want to say, what's his name, Paye Segura from Ohio. I believe we've held running backs at check rushing the ball. It's just been the scrambling quarterback. So I mean, it takes away, if all goes well, it takes away from Bo Jackson. It takes away from C.J. Donaldson a little bit, but also we haven't faced a rushing core that's been this good. So it's a very much going to be a chess match from Greg Schiano. I know that Ryan Day doesn't see us as a cupcake opponent because we're a Big Ten opponent, and we're not the worst Big Ten team either. So it's I want to say, if it's still a game in the third quarter, I'm happy.
Me too. And I also know that Ryan Day isn't going to take us lightly because him and Schiano don't exactly have the best history either. They are not friends. Let's just put it that far, But no matter how you slice it, we are very well looking down the barrel of a winner-take-all game against Penn State in Piscataway on November, I want to say 28th, November 29th, 2 days after Thanksgiving. You really can't add any more narratives to that, You really you can't, because if Rutgers beats Penn State, to go to a bowl game, maybe that shakes some loyalty in the in the Penn State brass after they already lost their head coach this season.
Are you saying that a different branch falls?
What do you? No. What I'm saying, maybe not Penn State brass, but maybe that shakes the loyalty in some of the Penn State players after they lost their head coach.
Are you saying, so a different branch might fall out of that Penn State commit?
I like the way you're wording that.
But look, tomorrow is going to be the game for Penn State that they're looking at as a must-win game, obviously. It's Michigan State. Michigan State has not been good all year, and Nebraska did just lose Mr. Dylan Ravioli, so prayers to him. But even with a backup quarterback, I would still say that Nebraska could win that game. I mean, these are the easiest 3 games of the year for Penn State against the Big Ten. You would have said Northwestern and UCLA should have been, but obviously UCLA firing Deshaun Foster was the best thing they could have done, and Northwestern somehow beat them, and they're having a solid year. So Michigan State and Nebraska, if they lose to both of them, then why wouldn't we be favored at that point? If they lose to Michigan State, why wouldn't we be favored?
Right. So, well, first of all, I think every game from here on out for Penn State is must win. You know, I think just to preserve the prestige and honor of the program, they have to make a bowl game at the very least. You know, they might be taking the short drive to New York City to play in one of the coldest bowls out there, but just to preserve the respect of the program, I think they at least have to reach a bowl game. Michigan State, I feel like, is the one game this season remaining on the schedule that they're like, okay, if we lose this game, sound the alarm bells, fire sale, holy crap. If we lose this game, then mail it in, season over, we're going to go 3-9.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is I'm hoping that that's still at play, but also if that's still at play, suddenly we have something to lose in that game. So it's a little bit of a loss in that scenario. But if they do beat Michigan State, do beat Nebraska, we're not going to be favored in that game, no matter how we play against Ohio State. And I'm saying no matter how we play because, in my opinion, we're not winning that game. I know that's not a crazy thing to say. But also as a Rutgers analyst, you're supposed to find ways that you can win. Meanwhile, my analogy is let's keep that close. So it's tough. I mean, you don't want to talk like that as a Rutgers fan, but the definition of insanity is expecting something over and over again and never getting it. And I would be a fool to expect anything other than a Rutgers loss against Ohio State. Now, how much we lose by that is something that I hope to keep within 3 possessions. And I think that each possession that we lose by is sort of like a tax at that point. If we lose by 1 possession, it's a game well done. If we lose by 2 possessions, it's something you can take away. You can take away some good things from. 3 possessions, it's 50-50. And then anything worse than that, it's looking like it's an Oregon game.
4 possessions I go is what I expected. But with that, you talk about trying to find positives in that Penn State game. I have a very real feeling that Penn State beats Michigan State, loses to Nebraska, and then I would say Rutgers is favored and Rutgers wins that game. However, if they beat Nebraska, Rutgers is likely going to lose that game. So I would not be so much looking at the Michigan State game as I would be keying in on that Nebraska game for the final game of the season.
Yeah.
That Nebraska game is going to be the one that should be Rutgers fans put that under a microscope, have binoculars, microscopes, have your best glasses that you could possibly get and take a very long, hard look at that Nebraska game because that's going to be the game that tells us what Penn State team we're dealing with. Because this Penn State team obviously has, some issues when it comes to character.
Yeah.
What happens after the Oregon game? They come in lackadaisical against UCLA and get punched in the mouth. Do they have the talent to beat UCLA? Absolutely. They clawed their way back into the game. But the mentality should have been, okay, we're going to go in against this weak team and completely flatback them. They didn't. So that tells you a little bit about the character of the Penn State Nittany Lions right now. If they lose any of their 2 remaining games before they play Rutgers, very good chance they just mail it in.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to knock a man while he's down too much, but in the adjusted words of James Franklin, you can't define a program by 7 bad losses.
I can't believe he said that.
He said 2 bad losses, but I'm giving an update here.
I know what he actually said. Yeah. You can't define a program by two bad losses. Well, I can define Chris Ash's program by our losses to Eastern Michigan and Buffalo.
Yeah. And also look at how our former defensive coordinator Harizmiak is doing with UMass. Oh boy.
Well, I don't think. How do I put this? I don't think that UMass is a job that Nick Saban can go and save. I don't want to say that. I really don't want to hurt the UMass brass any more than they've already been hurting, but they're not. How do I?
I mean, that's the thing, right? They're not expected to be good, but good Lord, are they bad?
If Nick Saban went and took over UMass would take 2 to 3 years to go 6-6. That is how bad that program is.
I mean, we thought that Belichick was going to go save UNC, and they're formidable at best.
But do you know what I'm saying when it comes to that UMass job? Is I don't think that this can really. Yes, Harizmiak has not looked good, but I don't think you could really judge a coach based on half of how good he does at UMass, because UMass is just a complete dumpster fire from top to bottom when it comes to athletics.
Yeah, I mean, it's also because of the conference they're in too. But I will say that Temple football is who are in the AAC. They were right there with UMass in the bottom 10 FBS programs, and they're 5-5 this year. So it's not necessarily a all is lost position to be anywhere in FBS as a coach.
No, I agree with that. But, Temple throughout their history has had at least some successful seasons here and there. I don't think I can name UMass being successful at all once, know?
That's I don't shout out Evan Simon too, by the way. Hell of a year.
Who would have thought, huh?
Yeah.
Not me.
I believe, does he still not have an interception?
I am not up to date, I'll be honest with you. But he
has one. So his touchdown to interception ratio is 22-1.
That's crazy.
Shout out Evan Simon, man, making a name for himself as a possible practice squad guy on his last year as a professional in college.
You know what? It is good to see, because, again, he was not put into a position to succeed at Rutgers. That quarterback room rotation was just the worst.
Yeah.
When you had Gavin Wimsatt, injured Noah Vettrell, and Evan Simon, and the fact that injured Noah Vettrell was probably the best quarterback in that room really is a sad thing to say. But, before we get, into a whole other tangent, we really don't have anything else on the docket to talk about today, unless there's something you wanted to bring up before we get out of here.
No, not necessarily. I mean, one thing that did piss me off last night was I wasn't expecting to beat the Patriots as a Jets fan, but when the Patriots won, hearing Al Michaels talking about how the Patriots found their franchise quarterback, found their head coach of the future, found their running back of the future. I'm like, damn, man, we couldn't have done any of that. Now,
Buckle up.
Brees Hall is good, but he's not our RB of the future if there's a chance we get rid of him after this season. And it's like, damn, man, that could have been us. It's like that. At this point, 15 years, no playoffs. How is that not us yet?
Well, first of all, I don't think other than crap,
One.
other than in the early 70s, the Jets really haven't. You're talking about 15 years. How about we go about 50 years?
Yeah, that's our only franchise quarterback. With all due respect to Chad Pennington, Brett Favre, he was a controversy away from being our franchise quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers was kneecaps away from being our franchise quarterbacks. Or not kneecaps, sorry, ankles away.
Yeah. But all I could say is thanks for the corner.
Yeah, whatever. Thanks for the draft picks. It was mutually beneficial. And also, I'm still rooting for Sauce. I love Sauce. He's not like Jamal Adams. Jamal Adams requested a trade. We got assets out of him. But Sauce Gardner, he was here until he wasn't. Like, he never bought out of anything. He actually has the best, I believe, tight coverage rate and the lowest completion percentage as a corner this year.
Well,
I will say you guys are bastards for giving us AD Mitchell, man. He had Sauce Gardner hands out there yesterday.
Well, you guys took him. It wasn't like you guys had.
It was it might have just been the match. Well, actually, I don't know. What's AD Mitchell? There's no way he matches salaries, so never mind on that.
You guys took him. So
yeah, I can't believe I'm speaking with a Colts fan, but I will say Daniel Jones as a franchise quarterback. Who would have thought?
Not me at the beginning of the season. I was literally thinking like,
how pissed were you when he got announced as the starting quarterback?
Oh, I wasn't necessarily pissed because I wasn't like, man, it should have been Anthony Richardson.
That's how the entire fan base was.
I was very much a okay, because I knew I wasn't thrilled about the Richardson pick. I wasn't happy with that. So I was like, really? We got Richardson?
Yeah.
So I was very much a person when that all came out, I was like, okay, we can't do any worse than Richardson because again, I like that when he came out of that game and subbed in because he was tired, I flipped my lid. I was like,
here's my question though. And this is an ethical question, or not I guess ethical question on just the game of football. Now I understand the workload difference, the running difference, but if running backs can come out of a possession 2 times or come out of a drive 2 times a drive because they're tired, why can't a quarterback come out for a play?
Well, you just sabotaged your own point there, the workload difference.
With A. Rich, he's a very mobile quarterback.
Right, but he was creating those times that he had to run. If you look at our offensive line is good, If he was running, it was because he chose to do that when he had time to look down the field and complete a pass. And at the end of the day, it also is what is acceptable across the league. Running backs have been rotating in and out for who knows how long. But as a quarterback, you're expected to play the whole game, and the entirety of it. When you're losing too, because they were losing that game, and you're saying that you're subbing yourself out because you're tired, and not like, oh, it's the coach's decision to have you come out. You subbed yourself out,
Yeah, that's true too. With running backs, it's always the coaches subbing them out.
Yeah, you subbed yourself out. That's a little bit, to me, that's like, oh, we're losing this game. I'm tired. I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, if he ran the ball 3 times in a row, then I guess my argument would be valid, though.
And then if the coach said, okay, let the other guy get a play, that's a
true.
different story.
Bingo, yeah.
Then that's on the coach, whatever when he said, I subbed myself out, that's like,
That's true.
What?
Yeah, I mean, you usually see more instances of guys refusing to be subbed out.
Exactly. But when Daniel Jones was named the starter, I was like, we're going to have the same season, We're not going to – we went from a bad quarterback to, at the time, a bad quarterback,
Yeah.
We're – at the time, I was predicting like a 5-12 season, So I was like, no matter how you slice it, we're going to go 5-12. Whether we have a quarterback that trips over himself when he runs in Daniel Jones, or we have a quarterback that throws a rocket, is the Gavin Wimsatt of the NFL.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense. I will say, Mr. Indianapolis Colts truther over here took Jonathan Taylor second round of the fantasy draft, and boy, was I happy. I drafted Justin Jefferson first. He's having an year, but Jonathan Taylor, man, that's the draft steal right there. And then I also reached 3 rounds below projections to get Tyler Warren, and I'm happy with his output. And then I drafted Colts defense. So Mr. Colts truther over here.
Well, to be honest with you, if you had a sit-down conversation with any Colts fan, they would tell you that what they've seen out of Jonathan Taylor this season is no surprise, Yeah,
2 years ago, he was doing the same thing.
2 years ago, he was doing the same thing. Last year, he was behind. They were in a whole offense that was underperforming. And when you have a quarterback that can't do anything right, like I said, he's the Gavin Wimsatt of the NFL. And I have a reason for saying that is because he can launch the ball, 50 yards and have it be on target. But he had no touch. He couldn't take the zip off a 5-yard pass.
Yeah, you guys were always a quarterback away, though. I mean, ever since losing Andrew Luck, it's always been a quarterback away from being a contender.
Well, when I was working a part-time job at the time when Andrew Luck retired, I literally put my head on the cash register and I was like, oh no. Put my head on the register at work and was there for like a solid 5 minutes. I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
I hear you. Yeah, I mean, I thought Carson Wentz was the answer.
I did too. You know what's funny? I have a Carson Wentz Colts jersey in my in my closet right now.
The only issue with Wentz is, it's like he has the arm that Fields doesn't, but like he still has the trust issues in his head that Fields does. He won't throw the ball. He'd rather get sacked.
Yeah, well, I wasn't too hopeful Justin Fields going to the Jets.
I was, just because of the premise of him being the fastest quarterback we've ever had. I was like, we haven't had this kind of speed ever.
I'm not one of those people that roots for the Jets to lose. I actually hope the Jets do well, but I want to see the Jets win because there's no fan base that is like because the Jets fans will still show up. They still wear their green. They still have their jerseys on, and you see it. You just walk around. You'll see people wearing their Jets pride. Lions fans, respect to them. They would their team started losing. They would put on their Michigan gear. It wouldn't be their Lions gear. It'd be their Michigan gear.
Yeah, I hear you.
Jets fans, they'll take their chops with pride, and I think that if there's any fan base that deserves to finally win something, it's the Jets.
Well, I'm just hoping that as more stuff comes out about a certain relevant topic right now, that maybe our owner is forced to sell the team. But if you can come up with that conclusion at home, then kudos to you, because I think you know what I'm talking about. But outside of that, man, it's like it's just been oligarchical hell from ownership. Outside of whatever may happen, it's just been an oligarchy since I can remember. And you know what I realized, how I realized we were screwed? Now I realized we were screwed from not making the playoffs for 13 years at this point. But how I realized we were screwed is not because of the whole Madden BS from his son, but because Woody Johnson is out here saying bench Aaron Rodgers after going 2-2 to start the year. Bench Aaron Rodgers? Are you kidding me?
Well, I certainly hope that the owner situation does get figured out for the Jets. We all know that Woody Johnson is not a very good owner. It's very easy to see that he is impulsive, brash, and he even said himself he's not a good owner. So at least he's self-aware. But
Yeah.
that pretty much does it for everything that we have for you guys here today. Gabe, thank you so much for coming on. You know, anytime anybody from the Voice of College Football show wants to come on, welcome aboard. Essentially, feel free to come on the show.
For sure. Thank you for having me too. Love this show. Love what you guys do.
Yep. And to our listeners, thank you guys so much for sticking through another episode of the Bells Must Ring podcast. On your favorite Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, like, subscribe, give 5 stars. It really does help the show and expand what we're able to do here. But that pretty much does it for everything that we have here today. And remember, as always, that the bells must ring.